This is actually it's not it's kind of
even still, I wasn't sure if it was you.
Robbie, what I think.
I'm so sorry.
Arabic? Alhamdulillah. So, اليوم مصاعب. من الآن نتكلم باللغة This is the
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So welcome everyone to another installment in our series, Studying the Sermon, in which we talk about So welcome everyone to another installment in our series, Studying the Sermon, in which we, as you all know, we revisit the khutbah of the day. We talk about it in a little bit of additional detail, mention some things that we're able to mention in the khutbah itself, given the time constraints, and offer you, the audience, the opportunity to contribute to the discussion in a meaningful way, whether through mentioning your experience with the topic, asking a question, giving general feedback, and even critiquing the khutbah if you so choose. And the title of the khutbah today was Shared Discomfort Gives Everyone a Share of Comfort. Again, shared discomfort gives everyone a share of comfort. And this was another installment in our series, Know the Prophet, Know the Truth. And basically, the main idea in general of this series is for us to train ourselves to embody this maxim. If you know the Prophet, you will know the truth, and then you will know how to appropriately judge people and the things that they do, right? And so we want to practice this maxim, and we're going to talk about a little bit why the series and also why the specific topic. So the main idea generally of the top of the series is to practice this maxim. Then the main idea of the khutbah today, shared discomfort gives everyone a share of comfort. The main idea was to teach us how to behave in community with one another, and to behave in a way that fosters a cohesive community and minimizes conflict. And at the same time, it minimizes conflict, it minimizes the ill feelings, the division, and the splintering that result from conflict. So basically, one of the reasons why we were motivated to give this topic, or the main idea of the topic, I should say, was basically we want to teach people, how do you function, how do you move, how do you navigate in a community, especially a community like this where it's so diverse. You get all these people from all these different backgrounds, speaking all these different languages, and having all these different cultures and ideas about life and worldviews, etc., and so on. How do you function in a community like that in a way that fosters cohesion, brings us together instead of separateness, right? And it helps us to avoid some of the conflict that comes from what? From being different. And in addition, and by extension, that conflict, it helps us avoid the things that come from conflict, like ill feelings and splintering and division, etc., and so on. So then now the question comes, why? Why the series? Why this topic? Like, as far as why number one, why the series, we've talked about that repeatedly because of the flagrant, gross ignorance that we see, unfortunately, in our community globally and also in our local community. Basically, people lack knowledge of the sunnah, lack knowledge of the seerah, and as a consequence, they're unable to use that knowledge to appropriately judge people and things. And so people do things, and people say, oh, why are they doing that? Oh, why is he doing that? They shouldn't do that. And only to find out that the thing that they're upset about is something the Prophet actually did. Something that was part of what? Part of his sunnah. And so we have to have that knowledge in order to what? In order to avoid misjudging people and the things that they do. So that's one of the reasons why we picked the topic. Number two, we picked this specific topic. The topic of today, shared comfort, gives everyone an opportunity to have a share of comfort. Because I think fostering community is a goal that I think we all share. Is that true? Everybody want to foster community? Everybody want to be in community? Mumtaz. I think it's important the Board of Trustees, the people who, kind of are, the head honchos and the people in charge of the masjid. It's definitely important to me as the imam, and I think it's important to all of us as community members. We all want to be what? We all want to be in community. We all want to be one ummah. We all want to be together and not divided and disjointed. Now, a big part of community, an essential component of community, is actually in the word, is what? Is unity. The opposite of what? Being divided. Y'all see that? And Islamic unity, the way Islam sees unity is not maybe the way that other people outside of Islam see unity. So there's something called what? Islamic unity. And this is the one that we should be striving to foster. And that Islamic unity, it results from combining what? Combining the right ingredients. Y'all see that? That Islamic unity comes from combining the right ingredients. And if we don't combine the right ingredients, we might have unity or what looks like unity on the surface, but that unity is really what? A fake or un-Islamic unity. Like the unity of the Yahud. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes them in the Quran saying, تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. He says, you perceive them as united. They look like they're united on the surface, but in fact, they're divided. Y'all see that? Is that the kind of unity we want to have? Absolutely not. We want to have a real unity, where we really are, we look united on the surface, and we're united what? Beneath the surface. And we mentioned that in the khutbah. So now we said that you have to have the right ingredients in order to produce the right unity. So what are these right ingredients that produce this genuine Islamic unity? They're laid out for us where? Laid out for us where? Who showed us how to be united? Who showed us what unity looks like? Rasulullah sallallahu. Where? In the Sunnah and in the Seerah, right? In the Sunnah and the Seerah, he practically showed us and told us, hey, this is how you unite. These are the essential ingredients of real Islamic unity. So if we really want to know what that looks like and how to practice it, that's where we should what? We should look first. And one of the things that you find in the Seerah of the Prophet and in his Sunnah as it relates to unity is this concept that we were talking about in the khutbah. Sharing or embracing shared discomfort so that everyone has a share of comfort. Embracing shared discomfort so everyone has a share of comfort. In other words, in order for us to have real unity, free of the animosity and free of the resentment that will invariably undermine it. If you really want people who are in community not to what? Not to have animosity towards this one and resentment towards that one, everybody has to what? Everybody has to embrace some discomfort so everybody can be comfortable to a certain degree. Y'all see that? If this group is told you have to be entirely uncomfortable to make this group entirely comfortable, they're going to resent them. They're going to have animosity towards them, hostility towards them. That undermines what? Unity. Y'all see that? No one individual or group's comfort should take precedence over that of others. Y'all understand that? No group can be made to feel like, hey, all that matters is their feelings, and your feelings don't matter. Because these people are going to what? They're going to hate these people. Y'all see that? The Prophet understood that very, very well. And that's why you find his sunnah and his seerah full of what? Full of telling people, hey, embrace some discomfort, not entire discomfort. Embrace some discomfort, so what? So other people can have some semblance, some share of comfort. Y'all see that? And we gave examples in the khutbah. To give one more example. I'll give one example from the sunnah, because we said the sunnah was full of it. Give one example from the sunnah, and one example from the seerah. From the sunnah we have the hadith of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri, radiyallahu anhu. He said, بينما نحن في سفر مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذ جاء رجل على راحلة له. He said, we were traveling with the Prophet ﷺ in a caravan, and along comes a man on what? On a mount. Could be a horse, could be a donkey, could be a mule, could be a camel, but he was what? He had a rahila. فَجَعْلَ يَصْرِفُ بَصْرَهُ يَمِينًا وَشِمَالًا. Start doing like this. Doing like this. The people around him, they didn't pick up on what he was trying to say, but the Prophet did. He was looking left and right, hoping that somebody would see the signal he was trying to send that he was in need. Don't be fooled by this camel. I don't have a penny to my name. I don't have 2 pennies to rub together. I don't have anything to eat. It's going to get cold tonight. I don't have a blanket. So he's looking left and right, hoping somebody will pick up on the signal. The Prophet picked up on it. So he said, من كان معه فضل ظاهر فليعد به على من لا ظهر له. ومن كان له فضل من زاد فليعد به على من لا زاد له. He said, whoever amongst you has an extra mount, extra mule, extra donkey, extra camel, extra horse, then let him give it to the one who has no what? No mount. Some of the people who are with us are walking. And some of you guys are what? You're on a camel and you're what? You're pulling another one. Let somebody ride that camel. You got something extra? Embrace what? A little bit of discomfort so this person can be what? More comfortable. People have extra what? Extra food. Give from the extra food you have. Embrace some what? Some discomfort. Some inconvenience. So what? So this person can be more comfortable. قال Abu Sa'id, he said, فَذَكَرَ مِنْ أَصْنَافِ الْمَالِ مَا ذَكَرَ. He said the Prophet went on mentioning other things beyond a riding mount and food. He mentioned blankets, he mentioned cooking utensils, he mentioned other things. And told, hey, if you got extra, give it. If you got extra, give it. He said, حَتَّى رَأَيْنَا أَنَّهُ لَا حَقَّ لِأَحْدٍ مِنَّا فِي فَضْلِ. He said, to the point I thought that nobody amongst us had a right to have anything extra. Y'all see that? Now see how the Prophet was telling him, hey, embrace discomfort. Embrace some inconvenience. Is it an inconvenience if I have 3 pots and I give 1 to somebody else? Am I being inconvenienced a little bit? Yes. Because I have 3. That gives me what? Flexibility. I can cook multiple things. Y'all see that? I can use it for trade. I got this extra pot, but I don't have an extra thobe. I give you my pot for your thobe. That's something I can barter with. Y'all see that? So when I give it up, I'm what? I'm inconveniencing myself. I'm embracing some what? Some discomfort. Somebody else can be what? Be comfortable. Y'all see that? Prophet was about that. And he taught us to be about that. Think about that. I can give an example from the seerah. When the Prophet first got to Medina, he did what they call a mu'akhat. He created a bond of brotherhood between one muhajir and one ansar. Y'all see that? And you got to think. The muhajirin, a lot of them, when they came from Mecca, they were rich. They were not poor people, or they were at least people who what? They were, they were comfortable. They weren't poor people. They weren't destitute. But when they came to Al-Madinah, they were poor and destitute because they left what? They left everything they owned. They left their land. They left their homes. They left their property. They left their belongings. They left their sheep. They left their goats. They left their whatever they had of wealth. And most of the people who came from Mecca, they were tradesmen. They were merchants by trade. They made their money buying and selling. That wasn't the game in Al-Madinah. The game in Al-Madinah was agriculture. You have to what? Till the land. They didn't know that. You ever met a man who never worked a day in his life and you shake his hand, you're like, hey, give me your hand, brother. Hand is so soft because it never worked. Like Adam. It's always on a keyboard, right? Never worked with his hands, brother. So that's how they were. They didn't know nothing about agriculture. So when they came, even if they wanted to work and do the work that people did in Medina, they didn't have the skill. They needed to be trained. But in the meantime, they have to be able to what? Put hand to mouth. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made this what? This mu'akhat. He made a bond of brotherhood, and he told the Ansar. They had all these like palm trees because they were date farmers. Said, divide your date palm trees. You take a portion and give a portion to what? Give a portion to your brother from the Muhajirin. And continue to what? To cultivate and harvest. Do the work. And just give them what? Give them from the harvest. Y'all see that? Help them get on their feet. Told them to make these sacrifices. I'll give you another example. In addition to that, the Ansar, when the Muhajirin came, they had land. They gave the extra land, and the Prophet built houses for the Muhajirin on that land. Also, he made them commit to mutual aid. Mutual aid. You take care of me, I take care of you. And mutual aid was what? It was broad. It encompassed what? Material things, like money and food and clothing, but also moral support and care and love. Love them like you love your own brother. And he made it obligatory for them to what? To mutual inherit from each other. Y'all see that? So these are two examples, where the Prophet ﷺ told the Muslims, if you want to be united, you got to embrace shared discomfort. So everybody has a share of what? A share of comfort. Y'all see that? This is important. So by that, if we go to the khutbah, we're going to recap the khutbah and talk about some points in the khutbah to bring it home to how this applies to us in our context, in our community. We talked about, basically, we started the khutbah by saying all too often in relationships and in communities of all kinds, people adopt the mindset that some are supposed to have and others deservedly have not. Some people can take whatever they want and others should simply take whatever they get. Some people should be able to do whatever they want, no matter how it inconveniences and affects others. And some people should what? They should have, others should have not. And those who think this, either they don't know the Prophet, we said, or they don't know, because and they consequently don't know the truth, or they know the Prophet and they know the truth, but they choose what? Not to use that information, that knowledge to judge people and things. But here we stress that when we're talking about the haves and have-nots and the people who should be comfortable and uncomfortable, we said we weren't talking about material things, primarily. We're talking about immaterial things. Like what? Like being seen, being heard, having your feelings considered. Underline that one. Having your feelings considered. Things that offend you, it offends them. You see what I'm saying? Things that bother you, make them feel bothered. And they want to know, how can we make you not feel bothered? How can we make you feel welcome? How can we make you feel included? How can we make you... They care about that. They care about that for what? For everyone, not for what? Just for some people. Like, then by that, we said, we talked about how we gave the example of the ayah in the hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about making room for people. Y'all remember that? The ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ تَفَسَّحُوا فِي الْمَجَالِسِ فَافْسَحُوا يَفْسَحِ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. O believers, if it is said to you in the assemblies, to what? To sit close together and make room for what? Other people, that make room for them. Y'all remember that? And then we mentioned the hadith where the Prophet said, he said, لا يقيم الرجل من مقعده ثم يجلس فيه ولكن تفسحوا وتوسعوا. He said, don't let one of you go to somebody in the assembly and tell him to stand up so you can sit in his seat. Rather do what? Sit close together and make space for each other. Y'all see that? And we said this hadith and this ayah is not supposed to be taken just literally. It does mean literally, make space literally, like actual physical space, but it also should be understood figuratively, right? That we make space for the feelings of others. We make space for the comfort of others within the confines of what? Islam. Let me pause there. Within the confines of Islam. What that means, brothers and sisters, and that's a very, very important, caveat, is that, listen, we can't make space for people who are going to do haram things. Somebody comes into the foyer, let's say they come during the wintertime, it's real cold outside, or it's raining outside, it's pouring down, buckets in, it's raining cats and dogs. They come into the foyer and they say, man, I want to smoke. But I can't stand out there in that rain and smoke, so they want to just light up in the foyer. We can't be like, well, we got to make space for that. No, that's haram. It's haram on so many levels. One, smoking is haram. Number two, smoking in the house of Allah is even more what? More haram. Then by that, the smoke has what? It has a smell. That smell, yani yulawwith al-bi'ah, right? It pollutes the air in the masjid. And also, it inconveniences what? Those people who have respiratory issues, right? Exacerbates and upsets their respiratory. Y'all see that? We can't accept that. We can't say, oh, we got to make space for him. No, he's doing something haram. We're not going to make space. Y'all see that?
Also, angels doesn't like mess.
Yeah, they don't like the smells. They run from the house of Allah if there's a bad smell. But sometimes the haram thing is what we call min al-ma'asi ash-shahwaniyah. It's from the sins of desires. That's like what? Like smoking and drinking and, right? Somebody wants to bring his girlfriend in here. Hey, I'm going to pray and I want my girlfriend to sit in the lounge, right? Like, we can't help you with that. We can't support that. But sometimes the ma'asi is al-ma'asi ash-shubuhatiyah. It's the sins of what? The sins of misconceptions, the sins of bid'ah. That also we can't tolerate. For example, you have these people like these certain movements, they have these beliefs, they call themselves Muslims, but their beliefs are they are completely contradictory to Islam. You cannot reconcile them with Islam. So for example, you guys ever heard of Al-Ahmadiyya? The Ahmadiyya, they believe that there's a prophet named Ghulam Ahmad who came after the Prophet Muhammad, and this was during the British occupation and colonization of India. He emerged, claimed he was a prophet, and people followed him. And people still follow him to this day.
Yeah, they have actually a mosque.
Yeah.
By accident.
Hey.
They have
Not knowing, right?
They have very beautiful mosques.
Hey.
I went there, and the way they pray it's a little weird. You're right.
Hey. It's different.
So I called my uncle, and he's very knowledgeable, and he's like, don't go up there. I was like, why? I don't know. He said, this is called Ahmadiyya. And then I found out, so I looked deep, but yes, you're right.
Totally different belief system, or very different belief system. Primary thing, believing in what? In Rasul after Rasulullah. That's enough to make you what? A disbeliever. Y'all see that? So we can't accommodate that. They say, hey, we want to come and do a party here, Ahmadiyya movement, and we're going to bring one of our sheikhs here, and they're going to preach the gospel of Ahmadiyya, right? We can't do that. We can't say we got to make room for them. Why? Because it's what? It's haram. Y'all see that? And this lets you know, there's a common statement that people make. There's a common statement that people have. Ibrahim. Exactly. MashaAllah. Okay, we don't need to be saying all that though.
Also, Ahmed bin Qadi, so-called prophet, actually he died in the toilet.
Yeah. And stuff coming out his mouth and stuff coming out his backside. Yeah, it was awful. Which is a sign that Allah is best. We'll talk about it later because I don't want to. It's just an example, Yakhwan. I don't want us to go off and make the lecture about Ahmadiyya. We'll talk about it later. Like and listen. So this lets you know, if you understand this about we can't accommodate haram, whether it's al-ma'asi ash-shahwani or al-ma'asi ash-shubuhatiyya, the sins of desires and the sins of what? Of bid'ah. We can't accommodate that. You understand the ear of those who say, and they say bishakl al-am, they say it in a very general sense, an all-inclusive sense, unlimited sense, unrestricted sense. They say, نتعاون فيما اتفقنا عليه ويعذر بعضنا بعضا فيما اختلفنا فيه. They say, we cooperate with each other in the things that we agree on, and when we disagree, we what? We just turn the other way. No, we don't do that. Y'all see that? However, in our context, we have to make room for cultural differences. And we have to make room for legitimate school of thought differences. We have to make room for that. You see what I'm saying? We have to make room for that. If we don't do that, we won't have community. Y'all see that? We said in the khutbah, we have to be willing to experience some discomfort, whether physical, emotional, or financial. We said, listen, in order for community to work, we have to be willing to accept some discomfort. And we gave examples. Physical discomfort. Physical discomfort, like we said, hey, we're in this space, and I want to just what? I want to put my feet out. I want to kick my arms back. But it's a lot of people in here, and if I do that, Abdul Latif's going to come in, he's standing up looking for a place to sit. What do I have to do? I have to tighten up. And so he'll have a place to what? Sit down. That's going to make me physically uncomfortable. But I'm willing to do that for what? So there'll be space for him. Like another, we said emotion. Emotional. Sometimes we suffer like letdown, disappointment. We want something. We want the mosque, for example, to provide a certain service for us. But they can't provide it because of the lack of resources. And so there's an emotional letdown. There's an emotional sacrifice we have to make. There's some emotional discomfort we have to accept. For example, let me give you this example. In Ramadan, there was no child care or babysitting for infants and toddlers. We had a space for them, and their mothers could watch them. But there was no what? There was no babysitting. So if a woman came with a toddler, she had to watch that toddler. There was babysitting, or there was child care, not just babysitting, it was very, very professional, great child care for what? For kids who were 3 and up, if they were potty trained, right? But if they were less than that, then the mothers had to watch them. Some of the mothers might have come expecting child care, they didn't get it, and they were what? There was emotional letdown. But they had to what? They had to accept what? Accept that discomfort, right? Accept that because the mosque did the best they could. You guys see that? Like financial. Financial is where what? We give from our earnings that we could spend on ourselves, spend on our kids. There are things we want to buy, but we do what? We go without buying those things, and we give what? We give to the masjid so we can grow the community. You guys see that? So these are all examples of what? The kind of space giving, right? Making space, and we all have to do the discomfort we have to accept. Now, we talked about this in detail. We gave some examples, and then we said, listen, I'm giving all these theoretical examples. I got to give what? A practical example. Because if I don't, you're going to leave here, and we're not going to be able to practice this. You got the theory, but then it comes time to practice, you're not going to practice it. So we gave an example. The example we gave primarily, the first one we gave was what? The parking, right? And if you guys were here the first one, I felt like the delivery was kind of clunky. It didn't come off the way I intended. I hope it was clear, but when I was delivering, I was like, man, I hope I'm making this clear. I felt like it didn't come off as smoothly as I wanted to. But I hope you guys got the point that some people want to park just any kind of way, in a way that could even be dangerous, in a way that what prohibits other people from parking, right? So for example, let's say like on this one strip where the fire department is, it kind of curves and goes back. Let's say somebody pulls in and they get about right where the curve is, and they park at an angle where no other car can what? Can go past. So now that whole rest of that lot, nobody can park there. You guys see that? Some people do that. They're so worried about getting in to get their whatever, to get their prayer or make the rule, whatever, that they don't think about the people who are going to come behind them. So that's group A. And we said group B, they would complain about it. And then we said group C would watch this whole thing play out and say, man, what's wrong with these people in group B? Just trying to be the parking police. Let these people park however they want in peace. Let them break the rules of the religion, the rules of the organization in peace. And we said the problem with that is then what are we doing? We're saying, hey, the feelings of these people are more important than the feelings of what? These people. But what we should be saying, based upon what the Prophet taught us, everybody should be what? A little bit uncomfortable. It's no problem if we ask that person, hey, go out there and move your car so people can what? Can get in. They're going to be inconvenienced, but they're going to be inconvenienced so other people can what? Can park and find some comfort. Y'all see that? Then we gave some other examples just to really drive the point home. We gave the example, for example, we have a gathering and we have food and we do buffet style. And the first person in line, second, third person in line, they take what? They take more than their fair share, right? They do Jebel Ruz, right? They do a mountain of what? A mountain of rice and then a bunch of chicken and everything. In fact, they may be like, they need 2 plates. And if a few people do that in the front of the line, by the time the people at the end of the line get there, what do they find? They find gravy, they find a few grains of rice, and they find a bone with no meat on it, right? A neck bone, right? But then we gave the example of being loud in quiet spaces, right? People come to a place where people, for example, come to Musalla and people are trying to read Quran, trying to just reflect, trying to make dhikr or trying to make salat, and somebody comes and they do what? They talk really loudly, right? Or they read, but they read loudly, and they disturb other people. We say, hey, everybody's got to what? Everybody's got to be a little, maybe I like to read loudly. I like to hear myself. I need to hear myself. Yeah, that's great. But if you do that, you're going to inconvenience others. You got to what? Accept a little bit of discomfort so everybody can be comfortable. We gave that example. We also gave the example of cell phones during the sermon and during the prayer. And remember what we said in the khutbah, we said these are all examples. They are not what? The subject of the khutbah. We're trying to practice this concept of what? Shared discomfort allows everyone to have a share of comfort. I want to add one that I didn't mention in the the khutbah. And I want to add, and I wish there were more sisters here, to be honest with you. A lot of brothers, alhamdulillah, but not enough sisters to really. I really want to talk about this one, is the aspect of the kids, right? And people come, and they bring their kids, and we want kids to feel welcome. We want kids to grow up in the masjid. We want kids to love the masjid. But sometimes when kids come to the masjid, they want to run around. They want to play. When they run around and play and they scream and they chase each other and so on and so forth, they make noise and it disturbs other people, right? So now you got group A, they got kids and they won't let their kids what? Free range. You got group B that might be what? Disturbed by that. So now what do we do? Some people say, just let the kids. Just let the kids. Let the kids to them, not only does it mean we don't say anything to the kids or the parents who have kids. We don't say anything to them. We don't even have what? A child care program, right? We don't even do anything to give the kids something more constructive to do. Don't even do that. Just let the kids what? Let the kids do whatever. Problem with that is what are we saying? We're saying that these people's feelings take precedence over what? Over these people's feelings. And if we do that, that creates animosity. It creates resentment. And it could create what? Division. These people stop what? Stop coming. Some people they said something like this. They'll say, we want these people who have kids to feel welcome. So do we. We also want these people to feel what? Welcome. We want everybody to feel what? Welcome. How do we do that? Everybody has to what? Everybody has to share some discomfort, right? Everybody has to share some discomfort. This is the principle that we want everybody to kind of understand. Because if we don't do this, we're not going to have community. People say, for example, that, okay, we establish rules. So if kids are this age to this age, they should be in childcare, we say. All right? So we establish this rule, and some people don't like the rule because they want their kids to be free range, so they stop coming. Some people say, hey, these rules are making people stop coming to the masjid, making them feel unwelcome. So we should what? Get rid of the rule. Okay, but when we get rid of the rule, these people will do what? They'll stop coming. Do we not care about that? Do we only care about these people, or do we care about what? How we got to meet in the middle. And everybody's got to do what? Everybody's got to do their part. Everybody's got to share some discomfort. We're not saying don't bring the kids. We're saying let's gainfully employ the kids. And these kids, they go and they do the child care that we do, which has like arts and crafts, and it has games, and it has story time, it has prizes that they get, and different things that they build and construct, and also things that they're taught, practical morals and manners like sharing is caring, learning how to share, learning how to work with their peers instead of what? Taking things from their peers and making it all about themselves. These are important skills, life skills that our kids are learning in this program. So there's a benefit for everybody. I say all this to say that if we don't learn how to do this shared discomfort, embrace shared discomfort so everybody has some comfort, we're not going to have a community like that, right? Except there's going to be what? A small group of people in community, but then those other people who don't have community, they don't have a sense of community because when they come, they don't feel welcome, they don't feel like their feelings matter, they're going to go off and do what? They're going to do off their own thing. Instead of us being together, we're going to be what? Divided. So again, that goes back to what? This maxim, know the prophet, you'll know the truth, and then you'll know how to judge people and things. What we have to do, we have to practice here, Juan. There's an issue. We want the community to be together. We're having this issue of coming together. We pause. And we look to see what does the Sunnah say? What does the Seerah say? How did the Prophet deal with this issue? He had a lot of the same issues we have. He had the same issues. What? He told them. Shared, basically, we gave examples. Shared discomfort will allow what? Everybody to be what? Everybody to be somewhat comfortable and to be in what? To be in community. The thing about that, again, I wish there were more sisters because there was a letter that I did in Ramadan that I wanted to I really wanted to get some feedback on it, thoughts, critiques, have a conversation about it, but we won't get, what I'll do is I'll talk to you about the, general subject, and I'd like to get your feedback, okay? So in Ramadan, there were a number of sisters over a number of days, kind of back to back, who reached out to me, private message, sometimes meeting me in the mosque and saying that there was a lot of disturbance going on. over here. There were people who would eat in areas where we pray. They would eat in the areas where we pray. For example, they would, for iftar, instead of making iftar in the kitchen or making iftar in the area that was dedicated for iftar, they would go where people have the prayer mats. They would go sit there. They wanted to sit by themselves, sit with their friends, whatever they wanted to do, and they would bring with them, we had juice, we had water, we had fruit, we had soup. They would take that with them. Now, the problem with that is if you take that stuff in the area where people pray and a child runs by really quickly, or you just accidentally trying to be demonstrative, you knock that over, what happens now? It spills and soils the rug where people pray. And at some point, somebody's going to prostrate in what? In your soup, or your karkadeh, right? Or your tea, or your coffee. Or they're going to put their knees down, right? And soil their garment, right? They're going to be somehow or some way made to feel uncomfortable. So some people, they complained about that to me directly. Some people complained about, people not using the child care that we had. And so their kids who were eligible for the child care would be maybe running around, and they would make some type of disturbance in the back. So they complained about that. They also complained about the wasting of food. They complained about the wasting of food and the way the food was being, the behavior of some sisters in the food. So for example, people are lining up to get the food, and then there would be maybe like some pushing. And maybe there would be people who would do what? Who would cut the line. Okay? And also, some people would go and they would request food. They would say, I came to get 5 boxes. Right? I came to get 5 boxes. And what would happen is, the person is getting a box for themselves, a box for an adult, and a box for 3 kids. So now that's 5 boxes, but when they get back to the back, and you open that box, and that kid sees that box full of food, they're not going to eat all that. And so now what ends up happening? They eat maybe some of it, and then they do what? They throw the rest away. Some people were bothered by that, especially with what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Yemen, and what's going on in Sudan. Famine. People are just starving. Right? People are eating anything. So I say all this to say that, so these complaints came, and they came from sisters about who? About who? About sisters. So I wrote a letter to the sisters. And I basically said, sisters, and I called them the amazing sisters of PICC. And I said that I started out by saying some sisters complained. And some people thought, okay, so they may have felt, okay, he's picking on the sisters. I'm not picking on the sisters. I got complaints from sisters about sisters. If I got complaints from sisters about the community, I would have said what? Everyone, community members, right? So then I basically talked about, that some people complained about pushing and shoving, right, in the line. And that we basically shouldn't do that, and that we have to treat others and we like to be treated, that type of thing. I also talked about how important it is in Ramadan for us to understand that Ramadan is not about just not eating and drinking, but it's about what? Our manners and our character, how we behave and how we treat others. And the Prophet talked about that, and we've been talking about it throughout Ramadan, how the Prophet said, "Man lam yada qawl az-zur wal amr bihi wal jahl, falaysa lahu hajan yada ta'amahu wa sharabahu." He said that whoever does not abandon bad deeds while fasting, then there's no benefit in him fasting at all, right? We talked about that. And so I reminded the sisters of that. I also reminded them that we're doing all these good deeds, but there was a woman in the time of the Prophet ﷺ who did a lot of good deeds. She prayed at night, she fasted during the day, but she was unkind to her neighbor. And the Prophet said, "La khayra fiha hiya fin nar." He said, there's no good in her, she's in the hellfire. Which tells us that what? We can't just be the people who do the quote-unquote the religious things and then don't care how we treat others. I talked about that. I mentioned these things. I can share the letter with you guys. I won't share it in detail. But that's basically a summary of what I said. I guess my question to all of you, was I wrong? Did I do the wrong thing? And if I did, tell me I did the wrong thing and tell me how I went wrong and how I could be better. My position is this. 1, sisters complained to me about sisters, so I wrote a letter to the sisters. That's 1, an open letter to the sisters. Number two, I really, really believe in community. Everybody's feelings have to matter. Everybody's feelings have to matter. I think a lot of us, when it comes to the kids and a lot of some of these things, we're quiet because we want everybody to feel welcome. But what about if somebody feels unwelcome? What if somebody feels mutadayak, somebody feels uncomfortable, they feel inconvenienced by what? By these behaviors, and they complain. Do we ignore them? Do we say that they don't know? We got to meet in the middle somewhere. That's what we're talking about in the khutbah. And so if I did something wrong, I want to know I did it wrong. Tell me. You can tell me right here, right now. Criticize me. Tell me how I can do better. How can I adjust this? Because my thing is, as I said in the khutbah, I believe in that. Shared embracing, shared discomfort allows everybody to feel some sense of what? Of comfort. Sometimes I feel like our messaging is, these people matter, these people don't matter. We can't have that messaging because the people who are basically being told they don't matter, will what? Will hate us, they'll resent us, they'll have animosity, they'll stop coming too. And if you don't lose these people, you'll lose what? These people. It shouldn't be either or. We want to keep everybody together. Atfadal, Ma'ruf, if you want to say something, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think on that point, I think we have done this because it's on maturity. See something, complain about it, have to address it. That's what you do. And then the second thing that I think I have in mind is, okay, I have a child, all right, that's no rules. And when it comes to me, I do the same thing. So I think the child is not to do better, it's me. Me and the parent, the father, don't have respect to any kind of food. What am I supposed to output? The same thing. So I think that's what I think we need to try to fix. Then we can stipulate because the child doesn't know.
Hey. Anybody else? Jazakallah khair Ma'ruf, I appreciate it. Tafadhal, Abdul Latif.
I think the question is, could be, did it work? Was there a difference? Did you see behavior change?
What I will say is this. I didn't hear any more complaints. I don't believe the behavior changed. I don't believe the behavior changed. I think that some people got offended. And rather than address me and say I was offended and let me, explain, I think people just got offended. Whether they continue to come or not, I'm not sure. But I think somehow, some way, it got to other people, and then they kind of voiced to me, I don't know, maybe I'm not making people feel welcome. My problem is that I feel, and I could be wrong, and that's where you guys have to correct me. I go out of my way to try to make everybody feel welcome and try to accommodate everybody. When we came and we saw that the children ran around, didn't have anything constructive to do, we created a whole program, right? And then the first year, we didn't have anything for infants and toddlers. So this year we made sure we had something for infants and toddlers. We're trying to do the best we can and meet the people in the best way. We do what we can. We inconvenience ourselves. We allow ourselves to be uncomfortable to create some semblance of comfort for others. We need them to what? To respond, to reciprocate, to do the same thing. And I didn't feel, at least this is my feeling, and again, correct me if you see it differently, I don't see that being matched. I see if we don't do everything and we don't allow ourselves to be completely inconvenienced and make other people completely comfortable, I think what ultimately happens is that their attitude is, in Arabic they say, Dalilni wala bahrat. Right? Do exactly what I want, give me everything I want, or I'm out of here. And it's like we can't live in that space, because what that means is that these people are going to be entirely comfortable and these people will be entirely uncomfortable. How long can you stay in a place where you're entirely uncomfortable? Right? If somebody told you, they said, okay, look, the only house available, the only shelter available is this closet. Right? This is where you will live, in this closet. It's a closet. You can't lie down. It's just a closet. You get in there, you stand up, and you can barely close the door, and you're just like this. How long will you be able to stay in there? And that's your just life. And ultimately, you're going to have to what? You're going to have to get out of there. It's the same thing. It's like, look, we all have to have a share of discomfort. Everybody has to give something. Right? We do the best we can with the resources that we have, and where that stops is where what? Is where your inconvenience begins, and your accepting discomfort begins. Anybody else? Adam, go ahead, and we'll come to Elijah.
So I do believe you did the right things. And I can just say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I know they can sometimes can mean reminder, perhaps that reminder will believers, they should just take care of this. I'll be some reminder, you know what I mean? And we have a lot of stories in Islam where somebody was talking, when someone getting married, an old woman said, no, like, you're not right, though. He said, yeah, Umar made a mistake.
And the woman is right,
and
yeah.
it was an easy reminder. So here, I do believe you doing that, in order to the reminder for these people. So at least not yelling at them, we just remind them, hey, this is right, this is wrong, and I do believe they should do back themselves and think about it. Okay? Is that right? That's wrong. And they can determine if what you were saying, if it was wrong, come back to you and say, no, you were wrong, and 1, 2, 3. If you were right, okay, I'm sorry, it was easy and simple.
And I would have loved for that to have happened. And if, like you said, if I was wrong, I would just say I'm wrong, and I could have like issued a retraction. But I do want to say, to your point, though, I finished the letter by saying this. I said, please accept this advice with an open heart and mind and maintain the highest standard of character in the house of Allah in your dealings with your fellow Muslim sisters. So I said, I asked them, please, just accept it. It's just advice. That's all it is, advice, and accept it with an open heart. That's it. So it was just a reminder. And I even said toward the end of the letter, I said, hey, some of you might say, hey, this don't apply to me. I don't do any of this. I said, then don't apply it to yourself. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. But you might see other people and what? Step in and advise them. Encourage them to what? To mind these manners, etc.
That the sisters, probably multiple different people from different countries.
Yeah.
How did that information translate to them?
Mm-hmm.
How did the letter get to each person? Like that?
Well, no. What I did was I sent it on the PICC, you know how we have the chat for the whole community? And then I asked it to be shared in the groups that are specific to the sisters. I'm not in those groups, but I asked someone to share it in those groups, and we did it in English and we did it in Arabic. I wish I had more translators. I could have people who could translate it in Urdu and some of these other languages, right? But we did have it in English and Arabic. We did have it in English and Arabic because I can do those languages, right? I can master those languages. I did want to hear and see if the sisters wanted to chime in at all. I'm going to come to you, Elijah. Did the sisters want to chime in on this at all? Nothing to say? Okay. Ajib, okay. Because we really wanted to hear from them what they thought. But Elijah, you wanted to say something. Father Shah.
I think, yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. I think it's important to stand firm, on the principles. I would say, because as this being the masjid, this is not only just a place of worship, but it's also a place of structure. Mm-hmm. There's no Islam without structure. You see what I'm saying? Hey. And that's very important. Like you said, shared discomfort, brings comfort amongst all in the structure of Islam. Mm-hmm. That's a very important part. You see what I'm saying? We can't leave out because, like you said, if somebody doing haram, you cannot be. Okay. And I would say this, I'm using symbolism right here. But basically, this masjid, this is like a berry patch surrounded by a massive field of thorns. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So we live in a nation where everything's about consumption. And everything's about individualism. And I'm an 80s baby, and we say all the time, the community that we were used to growing up is virtually non-existent. And the other word to community is common. Common unity. So we have to share something in common to bring that unity.
جزاك الله خير. تفضل عبد الملك.
What I would say is
No, there's no question about it. No question about it.
But what I would say is, no matter what, we always belong. I mean, it's just the nature. Because people were supposed to say that we saw a woman crying, at the grave, and they told her that she should have been patient. Look at when she raised her voice. And then we went back to the Prophet. So what I would just want to say is, if you keep quiet, will be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not to the men now. Did any man come complain about the food or whatever? Do you get complaint from the men? When we were so
Okay, well, I tell you, no men.
Just don't say anything.
No, I'm just saying, no men. Okay, I'm going to say this: no men came to me. That doesn't mean that they didn't. They didn't complain. But I think, generally speaking, I agree with you. Generally speaking, I don't think they had a problem with anything. I don't think they had a problem with anything. And if I told them something, for the most part, I think they were accepting. So I agree with your premise overall. Is that that you can tell men certain things, you can tell them a certain way, and they're more able to swallow it. Okay, they're more able to accept it and swallow it. And that is not the case with the Nisa. Women, they needed to. But even, and I'll share with you the letter. I brought it actually. I was going to read it out. But I really, really tried to use soft language, understand the psychology of women, really understanding it. To a certain degree, I have some understanding of it, right?
So what I want to say is, if you don't say anything, you will be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you say something, you will be wrong. Okay? And you can see that for the Eid, the Scottish program used to have a session for the sisters in the khutbah, just to address them. Because, because of the way they are.
And I've thought about doing that because it is the sunnah, but my fear is that it won't be received because why? We don't have the knowledge. And so if the imam goes and stands in front of the women and gives them a sermon to themselves, some husbands will get upset. What is he doing? Looking at our women and this, that, and the other, right? And the women will be offended. They'll think, oh, why is he singling us out? Even though it's what? It's the sunnah. Go back to what we said. Know the prophet. You'll know the truth, and then you'll know how to appropriately judge people and things. So trust me, there's been times where I thought, and especially I thought it was needed. Because, we come to Eid, and a lot of times there's a lot of disturbance. And disturbance comes primarily from the sisters. It's almost, they need their own private address.
So, and whatever comes from there, just do it.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Tafadhal Rabi. We'll give you the last word, inshallah.
So the one thing that I would say, is another reason why you did the right thing is not only did you address the sisters because the sisters had a problem with other sisters, but you also we also didn't know about it until right now, so there was some kind of confidentiality with it. But the one thing that I would have possibly done differently, is I would have followed up with them, and the reason being is because if you give that letter out and sisters still don't do it, it'll still make people uncomfortable. But now the difference is they won't say anything about it because they'll think, either A, the imam didn't address our concerns, or B, that he addressed the concerns, but the sisters that we're complaining about still don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the following up, if that didn't happen, then okay, this didn't work. We need to do course of action.
Hey, may Allah help us. Thank you for that, Robbie. Thank you for that, Robbie. All right, with that, brother and sister, we'll bring tonight's talk.